The New Britain Board of Education, providing students with a high-quality education.
Good evening. It is 6:07. We're going to call this meeting to order. And I'd like to invite Johanna Robles, principal of Jefferson School, to greet us. There she is.
Good evening. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Our students will start with Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to Jefferson Elementary School today. My name is Joanna Robles. I hope you guys can hear me if I go far away. I am the proud principal here at Jefferson Elementary School. I want to thank the board members, Superintendent Nancy Sarah, Dr. Tucker, Dr. Sanders, Ms. Putnam, Mr. Ford, all cabinet members, parents, staff. Please stand. If you're here from Jefferson, please staff. Come on, and thank you for your support for being here tonight. And students, as I am incredibly humble and grateful that you have chosen this wonderful place as Jefferson Elementary to have your meeting tonight. I am honored to be part of the staff here at Jefferson, alongside my assistant to the principal, Ms. Schiffer. I could absolutely not be able to do my job without the constant and professional support from all our staff members here at Jefferson. Thank you. I truly do mean that. Thank you very much to all my staff members. There are no problems. I always say there are no problems, only opportunities. Therefore, I approach my job with love for my staff, for my students, for my community, and hope that we, my staff, and I end up steering the ship in the direction it needs to go. Thank you for being here tonight and for your continued support, as always. I now want to introduce a fabulous group of kids and their instructor, the Jefferson Hot Sticks and Miss Says It. So before they start, I would advise the members to come and sit down here.
Have you heard of my one? Let's go with that way. I'm Kim.
Yeah, I'll just go with this. Yeah, we're good.
Please enjoy the performance.
I tell you they were fabulous or not, please give them a great round of applause. Our Jefferson Hot Sticks and their instructor, Ms. Sesek. Thank you. And again, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Robles. That always makes me smile. I love coming to the schools to see the student talent and to see the dedicated teachers to come out. So thank you very much. Mr. Kanata, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Cheney?
Here.
Mr. Gay?
Here.
Mr. Mercier? Ms. Muniz? Ms. Parker? Ms. Nancy Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Sanders? Ms. Sanders Connolly?
Here.
Dr. Sims?
Here.
Ms. Nicole Rodriguez?
Here. Thank you. I see two aldermen in the audience tonight. Thank you, Mr. Christian Rosado and Mr. Willie Pavone, for being here tonight. And now we'll take a moment of meditation. Let's have a moment of silence for the Jefferson staff and family for the loss of a little one and of their sibling. Thank you. Ms. Conley.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Thank you. In executive session, we are inviting Superintendent Sarah, Dr. Tucker, who else? And that's it? Okay, and the attorney, Joseph Scally. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. We are back from executive session. The next on the agenda is public participation. I have two people signed up to speak. Before I do that, we want to welcome Daniel Salerno and Robert Smedley to our meeting. Thank you for coming. And, no, not Sanchez. Can't see. That's Mr. Reyes, Mr. Richard Reyes. Hello, hello. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, so the first on the list is Becky Salerni. If you would please state your name and your address for the record.
Good evening, I'm Becky Salerni, 27 West Main Street, and I work in the finance department for the city. I'm happy to be here tonight to listen to the presentation and get some more clarification as to what the school administration is looking for. We did receive some indication that there was confusion regarding employee payroll deductions involving for medical insurance. And I'll leave you copies of a handout that we made several months ago when this first issue first came up. But first I want to clarify that the city is not taking any money from the Board of Ed, and it's not taking its Board of Ed's employee payroll deductions for medical. Those deduction amounts are set by the school department, just as the city's deduction amounts are set by the city. And that the money helps defray the cash that the city pays for these medical benefits. And employee deductions from both sides have been and continue to be documented separately in the budget. And no matter what form it's displayed, whether it's all together in one fund, it's documented there, the city and the Board of Ed's employee contributions, or if it's in one fund, it doesn't matter. At one time, the city's medical insurance was reported as one fund. For the last several years, we had split it apart into two funds. All we're asking at this point is an accounting, a reporting transaction to put these funds back together. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has at any point, and that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Salas Caballas. Yes, sir. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Salas Caballas, 2399 Stanley Street, New Britain, Connecticut. I'm here sort of on behalf of, not sort of, on behalf of Local 871. Clearly, Local 871 is very concerned with the information presented by the Chief Financial Officer from the board today. I just heard some information here from the city side, and that's all well and good. We looked at those numbers very closely, and all that information that we've seen indicated that the BOE have been good stewards of our HSA funds in the previous years. In essence, I'm just going to say it here now, and I'm willing to hear the other side. We believe Kevin's numbers. I'm not so sure about how well the city's been stewards of that money, but I'm willing to learn. As a citizen, a teacher, and as a union leader, I'm concerned for all of my colleagues and their money. I recognize, as I said, that there's two sides to every story. However, rest assured, we can read a spreadsheet. So we welcome to seeing their side's spreadsheet at a common council meeting. I will make it a priority to attend those common council meetings so I can hear from the other side and get some clarity on the issue. Sorry, late night. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm not going to get into any heated discussion or on anything as far as
Your
that
name
you
and
guys are
address for the
discussing.
record.
Oh, Christian Rosado, 27 Copa Road, New Britain. I'm not going to get into any of the big discussions that you guys are talking about. I just want to say how proud I am of my aunt, Joanna Robles, who's the principal at Jefferson, and I wanted to say it openly. I've seen her work. Seen her work so hard over so long. She cares so much about the students. She's a great mom, great wife, great aunt, everything. And I'm so proud of her, and I know Jefferson's going to do a great job under her leadership. Love you, Nadine.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Anyone else who would like to address the board? Thank you. Public participation is now closed. We will now hear from our superintendent and her report regarding the self-insurance fund. Are you trying to?
I am going to, but, so I have Mr. Kane, who's actually worked long and hard and many hours on this, and it's really just to update and inform the board, historical information regarding our self-insurance fund and where we currently are, and also to our teachers and our staff that are sitting in the audience as well. I will say that we did come upon this information in May, I believe, June. It was June. And as you know, we've tried to reach out, and there's just been discussion, and we said, well, you know what, we just need to bring it really and just bring everyone around the table together, and this was one way to do that. So that's what we're doing. So, Mr. Kane?
Good evening. If anybody in the audience doesn't have a presentation, there are some back here on the music stand. Now this is a very uncomfortable position for myself to be in, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay,
Yes.
there's like a
Back up
feedback.
from it, maybe?
Step back from a little bit.
I don't know if
from
it's
the
you
mic.
or if there's two mics up there. I don't know where it's coming from.
Jeff's going to take care of it.
Oh, you're the mom. It is-
You. Kind
My
sir.
eardrum is like.
I know, I was like,
pounding.
what is that?
I'm sorry, Kevin. I know you're already
Especially if
like,
it's gonna be
yeah.
a while up there, that noise.
Keep
I'm
talking.
gonna take over for a minute too.
Yes, please.
And I'm just gonna say, this is informational, so, and Mr. Kane, if you're okay with this, if we have any questions, we stop, we ask the questions now here for clarification. I know Mr. Kane knows the information very well, and for some of us who are hearing it for the first time, or the second, or even the third time, we have questions about it, so.
It's here, no, no.
Yeah, the board, it's really just for the board to ask those questions. Right. And I might ask some too.
But if you do have follow-up questions, those of you in the audience, please feel free to email them to myself and Ms. Sarah, and we will get them and the answers from Mr. Kane. So that those questions can be emailed to us if you have questions in the audience about it.
So, as I told you many times before, this is a very uncomfortable situation for myself because, I've been in municipal finance for 20 years as a finance director. I've been on the board side for 7.5 years. A total of 26 years ago, I actually had the same position in Clinton as a business manager and as a finance director on the Board of Education. So I've actually been on the other side, and I've been involved in where there is always the other side. And so I always remember when I was sitting on the town side, and we used to look at the education side as the dark side. And there's always little differences. But in my position as a finance director, I had to make sure I worked well with the education side, because at the end of the day, education is a separate entity from the town or the city, and you have to, remember that too. And as I used to always tell my employees that you sometimes would complain about education, I would say, just like I tell my kids, hey, this is our job, let's deal with it. Life isn't always fair. So coming to Britain for the last 6 years, I've seen another side. I do know there's differences between education and the city, but what happened here should never have happened. And we talk about the good thing in life, and life is all about communication. And that's like when you run your family, if you communicate to one another, you resolve things. So going back on this issue, on June 18th, I received an email from the finance director regarding, looking for a line item budget for the Board of Education. And I looked at it and I realized ours is a line item budget. But instead of being insulted, I wrote a nice email back and explained our budget book. I CC'd the 3 board members, the 3 highest board members, and the superintendent. So after I did that, I sat at my desk for like 5-10 minutes. I remember on June 9th, when the council adopted the budget, there was 2 resolutions. When you look at a resolution, many towns have, or many people vote on a budget. Here in New Britain, the council votes on a budget. Many towns, you actually go to vote on question number 1, question number 2, question number 3. And usually there's 2 or 3 questions. 1 is for the general fund budget, 2 is for maybe special revenue funds, and 3 might be some other stuff. Here in New Britain, the Common Council adopts question number 1, which is the general fund budget. Question number 2, which is called the, and I actually have budget books up here if anybody wants to look at it. It's called the Special Revenue Funds and Enterprise Fund. Common Council adopted budget. So when I actually went to that, so that day I sat at my desk for 5 minutes because we were kind of busy, and I said, let me look at what question number 2 really looks like. Let me see, Jeff, does this thing even work? Maybe not. So I look at question number 2, and it's called Special Revenue Funds and Enterprise Fund. When you think about Internal Service Fund, back when I was a finance director, maybe things have changed. Internal Service Fund is not a special revenue fund. It's an internal service fund. Many communities have an internal service fund. When I was in Simsbury and Clinton, we had an internal service fund. And what happened in an internal service fund is the board's contribution or the town's contribution was sent over to a special fund called internal service fund. It was never an adopted budget. So when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing special revenue funds and enterprise funds, and I'm saying, okay, what's this all about? So I look at page 2 on the index, and I see BOE Medical Self-Insurance Fund, page 68, and I see City and BOE Medical Self-Insurance Fund 702. So I was a little confused. Number 1, I didn't expect to see it here. And number 2, I wasn't expecting to see a BOE Medical Self-Insurance Fund and then like a combined self-insurance fund. So I was, kind of baffled by that. So I actually start turning the pages more and more. I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't know if Matt put in your presentation, because it wasn't in the original presentation, but if you actually look over at on page 69, it actually shows you really all the history from before. It shows you the current budget, and then it shows you it shows you a department request, which is usually maybe Board of Education, and the numbers they use for us are wrong. You'll see that later, but that doesn't mean anything to me. And then you see Board of Finance and Tax. So the Board of Finance in the city of New Britain actually sends forward the budget. In many municipalities, the Board of Finance is really the budget-making authority. In the city, you really have a weak Board of Finance. That's not to say that people are weak. It's just that you have a strong mayor form of government, and your Board of Finance is an appointed board, I believe, of the mayor. So it's not an elected board. Usually in many communities, the Board of Finance is the board. So when you're Board of Education and you're the city or town, you go forward, they are the board. They're the budget-making authorities. They're the ones that usually set what the spending guidelines, if there is one, they set between the boards, and they basically say to you, come prove it to me. And then at the end of the day, they might push the budget aside. New Britain's a little different. Board of Finance then sends it to the mayor, and then the mayor makes changes, and then he or she can send it on to the Common Council. So it's a different thing. But if you look at this, and that's what really got me very surprised. I looked at it and said, zero. I was completely shocked. What's going on here? So I turned the pages, and I realized they just closed their fund. And I turned the page on the, oh no, I think I got this all wrong here, Jeff. Oh, Matt. Then I see here, I see City Board of Finance, City BOE Medical Self-Insurance Fund, and I see a footnote down below. In fiscal year 19, the mayor proposes combining Medical Self-Insurance Fund 700 with City. And when you look at the pages, well, I guess we don't have everything here. When you look at the pages, you're going to see all the numbers from our fund, and we don't have them all here. All the numbers for our fund gets posted over on the city side. And also, it has a footnote there, the closing our fund balance to their fund balance. So I gasped when I saw that. And I actually ran upstairs to Nancy's office to say, you know, whatever, and Kiva said she's on her way, and I texted Nancy, and she's coming in from her car. So I went out, met her in the corridor between City Hall and the parking garage. You know.
That's true.
And at the same time, the city finance director came in, so it was great timing. And, you know, mentioned the email I sent back to her. I don't think she was very pleased that I CC'd the superintendent and several board members. She told me that, and I, you know, it's like that's life, because I've always learned that I report to other people. I report to the superintendent, I report to some board members, and the reason why I learned that, early in my career when I was the finance director in Branford, there was a day, I had a great first selectwoman I used to work for, that the other side came to me and said, hey, can you run us some reports on so and such? So I was like, yeah, okay, because everybody likes me. So I ran the reports, and the next morning, Judy got the first selectwoman, we used to call her first selectman, came to my office, almost jacked me up against the wall, and asked me, what did you do? And then I realized that, wait a minute, you know, she got burned at the meeting before because I gave some information out. I didn't think it was anything. But because I worked for her, I had to make sure I kept her abreast of what was going on.
Right.
So when I actually respond to things, I respond to things because it's not because I don't want to let the other people know that. It's just that I realize there's a pecking order. And I have to keep the superintendent abreast, and I'm going to have to keep board members abreast. Not a big deal, because the worst thing that would happen at the end of the day, if something I gave out to somebody else came back and bit them, I'm at fault. There's nothing controversial. So when we met Lord Granada out there, I questioned. At that point in time, I'll admit I fibbed a little because I just realized 5 minutes earlier our fund was gone. So I asked her a pointed question, and she said, no, we would never close your fund. And I said, well, when I get back, I'm going to go to my office, and if I find out it was closed, I'm going to send it to you. Got back to my office, ding, my email got hit, and it's a short email that says, yes, the funds have been merged per the mayor, per the other deputy finance director. If the superintendent has any questions, please have her reach out to the mayor. You know, and then later on, it's my understanding, and I can't speak, it's what I understand. I understand Nancy has reached out several times. I also know out of the 3 board leadership members, at least 2 of them reached out to no prevail. And, you know, that's why we're here today. So the next day, on the 19th, I actually bumped into the other deputy finance director in the garage. And I said to the individual, I said, geez, what happened? He goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, we closed it because of rating agencies. You know, it doesn't look good for us because our fund is this and your fund is that. And I said, who really cares? You know, as a finance director, as a city finance director, these are my financials. I was a finance director. I used to consolidate funds. As long as your auditors don't care, you can consolidate them for financial statement purposes. I don't care. But you really should not be merging my money with your money. And I said to him nicely, I said, where was the communication? I mean, I didn't receive anything. I don't believe the superintendent heard anything. I don't think any board members heard anything. So I said, there's no communication. And the response I got back, well, you should have read the book. You know, so I didn't really respond because, you know, it wouldn't have been a very positive response. So that's what happened on June 18th and June 19th, and that's where we are today. So these are, you'll see, these are like what the Common Council adopted budget looks like. And this is, you know, for instance, if you see in this Common Council adopted budget, you'll see that the health insurance line item, I wish I had my glasses, in 2018 was $10,700,000. The department requested, or the Board of Finance and Tax Review recommended 11, because we knew there was going to be an increase. I projected 10% on our side. I have no idea. And then somewhere in May, whenever the mayor changes the budget, and I heard about this, reduced it approximately $5 million, $4.9 million. Well, I didn't really mirror it together. I just heard, how can you reduce it? And my comment was, well, I'm not sure you're properly funding it anymore. But I had no idea that what happened there really transpired to another fund that affects Board of Education. So there is no communication, and there should have been communication, because we're a separate entity, and out of respect, someone should have said something. At the same time, was that communicated? And it really makes no difference. Was that communicated to all the aldermen when they did it? I don't really know. But I know as a finance director, whenever I made changes in any budget, I made sure I document it, and I basically let everybody know about it, because at the end of the day, it's my fault if people didn't know about it. Right or wrong, it's my fault. So here we are today. This is a briefing document.
Go to this right here.
I'm not sure why it's not going anywhere.
Long-winded about it.
Jeez.
He needs to be.
Hey, Matt, is something wrong with this thing?
He is.
I'm not getting any pages.
I was just gonna say, do you have the budget, you have the presentation that we have in front of us up there?
Yeah, this was supposed to be just the first 4 or 5 pages, and I don't see
It looks like you have the.
There it is. Okay, Matt. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, maybe it's just me, Matt. So, I'm not gonna go through the table of contents, but you see a cover page and you see a table of contents, and that's just to give you an idea what every page is.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, I'm doing it the wrong way, okay.
There you go.
There you go.
I'm a little confused, guys, so bear
That's
with
the
me.
page I want you to get to.
Okay, City of New Britain, Action and Consolidated School District New Britain Self-Insurance Fund. In the budget document, Mayor proposed closing CSDB Self-Insurance Fund and merge with City. The impact in doing so, it takes $10.93 million of our fund balance and just kind of moves it, and there was really no input to the BOE. It allows the city to eliminate its negative fund balance of $3.78 million, which was arrived at by not budgeting or funding adequately by the city. And the story. We had the same problem. We had the same issue on the board side. So it happens on both sides. It allows the city not to appropriately fund for its share of employee premiums for 2018-19. And my estimate, and these are my estimates. So what you're going to get in this presentation is facts, and facts are basically the dollars to date. All I'm doing is saying, I think the projection may be there's a shortfall of $5.38 million, and you'll see that later on. And of course, after the mayor does this, and it might be mayor, it might be mayor's staff, it might be, whatever, I don't know who, but it comes up as a mayor's budget. Common Council adopted mayor's proposal. So what does that mean? BOE employees, retirees, and BOE employer contribution effectively will be used to fund city employees' claims due to not funded adequately by the city. History of the fund. Prior to 2014-15, both were in one fund together, but it was separated in Excel worksheets. So it would have, revenues, it would have expenditures and fund balance, and you'll see Exhibit A, and you can see it. It goes back, I think, 20 years. But at times, because you have to think about it too, it's not a fund. Every year when you close your book, your fund closes. Okay, so if there's a mistake, you really can't go back and fix it unless it's some major material thing. So once a fund closes, you can't go back and adjust it. But this was a combined fund. So there was one time when I got here, we had an $8.1 million deficit, and shortly thereafter, it was $8.8 million back to 2002, 2003. It was later corrected. The history from this fund was from 14-15 to pretty much the present, at least we thought it was the present. They were separate. You'll see that the mayor proposed a separation. I know Board of Education requested. At the end of the day, who really cares? Who made the recommendation? They were separated because you're actually separating to match your revenues and your expenditures and your fund balance. So at the end of the day, there's no argument to say, wait a minute, what's going on here? And sometimes that's what happens, because there is human error out there. There's no doubt about it. And this way, it allows our money and our funding and our claims to hit one certain thing, and we can go through it to make sure it's appropriate. Same thing with the city. Now you just kind of put them together. You may put them in a line item, but it's cleaner. 2018, mayor proposes closing, and city adopts it. City council adopts it. Now this is really a history, and I can go back 25 years on the history. We've had some bad years here. But I came here November 28, 2012, and I always remember that day, because shortly thereafter I found out we were $8.1 million in the hole. And I was wondering if I should last another day or two or just run out of Dodge. We had issues in 2011, 2012. You don't see 2010 there, but in 2010, we had a fund balance of $2.9 million, which was a nice fund balance. But over the next 2 years, and I don't know why, we weren't funding our, appropriation. We had an appropriation that said X million dollars, and we weren't funding our claims either. So at times with a self-insurance fund, once you budget, some people take the approach, I budget $1. If my claims are 90 cents, I'll fund that 90 cents, and I'll take the other 10 cents and use it for something else. Well, it's very apparent we weren't even funding anything. So over the next 2 years, we hit it by $11 million. So in year one, I think it was $4.7 million. In year two, I believe it was like 6.3. So it was about $11 million. We just, whatever. And that's why we had the deficit $8 million. Shortly thereafter, when I was here, I'd be receiving phone calls, and sometimes even email, from the city finance department basically saying, when are you going to pay me? I'm going, yeah, this is a great one. When am I going to pay you? And it carried on to the following year too, even to the point where they wanted to charge our appropriation for our budget. Let's say our budget was $18 million, and they want to charge our appropriation for 18 plus the 8, for $26 million. And there's emails out there for that. And I say, no, let us work on this and let's fix it. So when you see that, you'll see a one high year that we really funded very well, $26 million. If people that were here back then realized, and I realized, we had no accounting system. Nothing talked to each other. It wasn't that payroll didn't interface with the accounting system, nothing. And then it was really difficult. It was manual when it interfaced with the city. So it was easy for me to say no to everything because I had no idea where we're going to end up. So that year we said no to a lot of things, and we actually made a huge correction. And over the years, things got very well. Now, if you look at the expenditures back in 2011, you'll see it's approximately $21 million. 2012, $22 million. 2013, $20.5. 2014, $20.5. And then you see the numbers going down. I don't really have an explanation for that, but our numbers have been trending down. Our premium has been trending up, so that's another story because we're kind of mixed together with the city when they do the premium analysis. So, that's something I have to kind of figure out. But you're seeing our expenditures going down. If you look at next year's budget, when we sat here back in June, we actually had to use $1.3 million, which really actually we shorted, we're using our reserves to fund our budget next year. So next year our budget is $21 million, and you'll see in the budget book, and our expenditures are $19.69 million. And you footnote down below, does not include the use of reserves, a fund balance of $1.33 million. Okay, now I'm going to look at the city. City had a bad year in the first year, 2011. They were at $2.6 million. And they had a very good funding year in 2012. I haven't really gone back to figure out why. But they actually flushed a lot of cash into the self-insurance fund. They had a $5.9 million fund balance. And then they went to $357,000, and then $800,000, and negative a whole 1.65, negative 7.80. So $7.1 million in hole. And I actually, at that point in time, I wanted to write an email to the city and when are you going to pay back the self-insurance fund. But I didn't because even though that happened to me, I figured, hey, I'm not going to do that. But over the last 2 years, 2017, 2018, I'm going to commend the city. They've actually made a dent. They've actually corrected, a shortfall. And sometimes people don't know when they correct it, and they really have made that attempt to correct it. So I'm looking at $7 million in the hole. They're at $3.8 million in the hole 2 years after. And that really is commendable. But the problem is, I'm looking at 2019 right now. And I'm seeing the expenses starting off at $9 million in 2011. I'm seeing them going up every year, some years going down. And I'm seeing the average of $13 million in the last 4 years. I'm seeing an average of 12 over 8 years. You got to remember that 2011 is a low year. And I'm seeing $9.25 million when the Board of Tax Review recommended $14.1 million. So, and there was a change of just under $5 million. So, and you look at the city side, you're going to see the expenditures, unfortunately, are trending up. Ours are slightly trending down. And, oopsie daisy, Jesus. What the heck? Matt, this is not in the order it's supposed to be. Did the slide get moved? Oh, man. Yeah, did we lose this? Oh, maybe the slide got moved. Okay.
What page is it, Kevin?
Yeah, I thought I lost the slide here.
Are you looking at comparisons?
Oh, well, I thought I lost the slide here, but maybe I didn't. Maybe it's me, maybe it's age. I just turned 60, guys, so give me a break. Okay, no. Actually, it's okay, Matt. I think I moved farther back, that's fine. Okay, so this is just a comparison of employee contributions, and hopefully I picked up the city correctly. We had the contracts for negotiations. Like with the city contracts and our contracts, some have expired, so those rates may be 2017, 2018. But I took our rates on the left-hand side. You'll see 19%, 18%, 14%, 12, 11.5. And the weighted average cost really comes from the budget book, pages 169, 170. I actually know what the weighted average cost between all the unions are. It's just, yes.
You're talking about the page?
Yeah, the cost comparison.
You're doing the cost.
Yeah, I think one of the pages got mixed up, and I'll have to go back to that. Something got moved.
So this is this is like the cost sharing of,
Yes.
like our administrators are 19%. Yeah. Ours versus, ours versus the city.
Yeah, no, our employees contribute, a bit more. And you can see the comparisons at 18, we contribute 14%, 11.5, 11.86. I call them clerical maintenance, probably other employees there, 12% and 9%. I don't know what the weighted average cost of the city is because I don't have any work papers on it. So I don't know if all the employees are police and it's weighted more highly at that level. But all I did for the city side, I said, well, let's just take the 6 numbers and just weight them, and it's 10.9%. But our average is 16.1, their highest union is 15%. At the same time, just to bring another thing in, many of our union contracts will give, let's say I have a spouse, and I do still have a spouse as of today. Let's say I still have a spouse, and she does not work in the school system, okay? And she has coverage somewhere else. Let's say she had coverage somewhere else, and I opted not for my coverage here. I get $1,000. And several of the city contracts, I don't know how many, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe all of them, they actually right now pay for coverage $2,000 for single, $3,500 for a couple, and $4,500 for a family. We have a rule here, and they probably have the same rule that if your spouse is here, by the way, you're not going to get that $1,000 or whatever. So I do know there's at least a contract or two that has that. And it may be all of them for all I know. Now, why am I showing you this? Self-insurance fund balance. It's really just to, more educate people on a balance sheet because I'm hearing things about liabilities, really important and all that. And you think about a self-insurance fund, really liabilities. And what I did on the city side, I kind of said all the liabilities and incurred but not reported. There's some other little liabilities out there. I think there's a small accounts receivable. I just put it in cash because I don't have so much room in this balance sheet anyway. So your balance sheet, your assets always equal your liabilities plus your fund balance. If you really think about it, pretty much so, your cash is pretty darn close to your fund balance. All you're seeing here is your incurred but not reported, not reported at $1.41 million. What is incurred but not reported? It's like if you or I went to the doctors in May, let's say, and it's not paid in May or June. It happens that a payment is made in July. Just think about it. We recognize the expense in May or June.
Right.
We haven't cut the check yet, so as of June 30th, and you set up a liability. When you cash the check later on, when you cash out later on, cash gets hit and the liability goes the opposite way. Right. That's all it is. So this is just really a calculation down below. It shows our balance sheet as of June 30th, and it shows the city as of June 30th. Now, I know the accounting isn't closed 100%, so this is as of today. So if something happened today, later on today, these numbers may have changed again. But this is as of today, June 30th. Now, what's budgeting for a self-insured program versus insured program? There's a little more to it than this, but I'm just going to be quick and dirty. They're really pretty much the same. Under insured program, A self-insured program, your consultant provides you a premium rate for singles, couples, and families based on actual claims which are adjusted for projected claims. Here the risk is on the employer, because what you're really doing here with an Anthem Blue Cross or a Cigna or whatever you have, you're actually using them as a third-party vendor. You might have their program or a program close to what they sell as an insured program, but they're just our vendor. They're running a program for us and we pay them a fee, yada yada, claims go through and it gets charged to us. So the risk is on us. The nice thing about that too is if you put $1 in and your claims are only 85 cents,
You can use that 15 cents for something else.
At the same time, sometimes you have to put $1 in, and sometimes claims could be a little higher than what your premiums are, and that's what you always have to worry about, and that's why you're supposed to have a fund balance. The old rule of fund balances, and it may have changed, was years ago, most people said for a self-insured program, you should have a fund balance of 30%, and they always say it's 3 months of expenditures or whatever you want to call it, and then a 5% factor. I'm trying to keep a 22% factor, which is more 2 months plus 5%. And some people say, well, you're being a little too aggressive there. But if you took a 30% factor on the city side and you knew their expenses last year were 12.7, that would tell me they should have a fund balance of 3.81. Their fund balance is negative 3.78, which kind of tells me they're $7.6 million off. But it's okay to be under the 30% rule, but you want to maintain a fund balance. When I was in Simsbury years ago, we had a self-insurance fund with the Board of Education, and we had a fund balance of approximately $2.2 million. I always remember that day because we're pretty proud of ourselves. And we had a pretty bad year. And we get to June 30th, and I'm business manager, good friend of mine, great guy, gets together, he goes, what are we going to do? I go, I don't know, Dave, we haven't gotten the final number yet. This is going to be really close. And of course, for whatever reason, we knew we were going to get hit for it. We finished with $6,000. I think it was $6,279. And it was like a celebration. We had a fund balance of .00001, and we felt pretty darn good about it. But our claims that year were over 100%. They were 115, 120%. We got whacked, and we wiped it all out. And that's why you always have a self-insurance fund balance. So, under your self-insured program, what is considered in budgeting? Liabilities? No, you really don't take your liabilities into account. Because most of the liabilities incurred but not reported. It's just basically that stuff that happened the year before. It gets posted to liability. You already recognize the expense. It already affected your fund balance anyway, so you don't look at that. Fund balance. So you look at fund balance. Yeah, you can if you have an excess. Premium cost? Yes. What is the premium cost? It's really what you do. You take the premium cost times the employees who opt for coverage, and you calculate the cost. So the employee share, in our case, let's say our employee share is 16%. I said 16.1. And let's just say we have one employee for the Board of Education, and it costs $10,000. Their share is $1,600. Our share is $8,400. So it's very simple. There's nothing complex with the numbers here. Here's the BOE funding calculation for 2018-19. And you can find this kind of like on page 168, 169. You really can. What I did here is a premium weighted average. Our numbers are slightly different for our unions. When I mean slightly different, not a huge difference. It might be within $100, $50, $200. So this is just a weighted average cost. So when we do our budget for June, we take a census data, a snapshot in time. And this one was probably around May 1st, because it changes all the time. So at that date, through our payroll manager, I believe Jackie is here tonight, Jackie provides me information. And she provides me information that we have 393 singles, 184 couples, 422 families. She also provides me information as to which bargaining unit they are in. So when you look at page 168, 169, you're going to see all the, you're going to see administrators, para, secretaries, 818, maybe some others. And that's how we budget for it. So if you look at our budget book, on page 168, 169, 170, if you look at the far corner to the right, that is the total premiums, $19,825,000. We know at that point in time our employee share is $3,191,000. We know that. We also made the assumption, we made the whatever to make our budget work. We also used reserves of $1,326,000. And really, it says the employee share. I probably should have wrote this a little better. Employee share equals 83.9%. minus use of fund balance. So that's what it really means. It's basically saying, hey, we knew we had $19 million, $800,000 that we owe for insurance. Yes, ma'am.
Right, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it for my brain. Because now that that fund is gone for 2019, we'd be short $1,326,000.
Yeah, if the expenditures hit like that, yeah, you're right. We might be in a hole. So, and that's like, that's the thing that I don't have a crystal ball. They could be lower. Yeah.
Or does it go back to the city, whatever the budget is now, 702, and they just fund that 1 million?
I couldn't answer that.
Because now that they're combined,
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to find out. Yeah, I think you're going to see later on there's question marks on, there's other question marks out there too.
well, I'm just.
Now, one thing it doesn't have here, we don't have the retirees' contributions. And it's approximately $1.12 million. That number stays the same. It might grow a little, but we really don't know, so we actually use the latest and greatest actual we have out there. Now, the city budgeting calculation of 2018-19. Here's the actuals for 2017-18. This is as of 12 o'clock today. Revenues $13,816,000. Expenditures $12,724,000. Net profits of $1,092,000. And that's very good. I'll be honest with you. You think about it. That's darn good. That's 7-8%. That's really good. So the beginning fund balance was negative $4.8 million. Ending fund balance, I think I should have changed that number. I think it's $3,783,000, but I may have made a mistake there. So the numbers changed today, so that might be a little off. I have to go with no. Yeah, I have to look at that one. No, that's right. That number's correct, I believe. But if it's off by a few $1,000. It's not off by a lot. Now, if you look at 2018-19 budget, and this is really what you see in Fund 702, and I probably should have said Fund 702. In Fund 702, department / and really there's two columns. One's department and one's Board of Finance and Tax after it. Both those columns have $14,127,000, and there's a bunch of numbers leading up to the revenues, there's a number of numbers leading up to the expenditure. But when you look at a self-assurance fund, you want to make it self-sustaining. If you're going to use anything, you use fund balance to make it zero. So, and of course, the reserves of negative $3.7 million is going to stay because we're assuming that it's going to remain at zero. If we have a good year with claims, we're going to knock that down a little. If we have a bad year with claims, it's going to go back up. Now, the mayor's council adopted budget and Fund 702 changed to $9.2 million. There's a reduction of $4.9 million. And you have to remember, if you go back pages, you'll see that 2011 was the last time they were at $9 million. We're under $10 million. You also know that we were given a 15% rate increase by our consultant, and maybe it's wrong, but we know our actuals were $12.7 million. So just factoring that, saying, well, they're projecting a 15% increase, so that makes it $14,632,000. But then the day, it really doesn't matter if it's $12.7 million, which we currently have, or $13 million. It's still going to have a shortfall. I have $5.4 million here, but reality is going to have a shortfall of $3.4 million if it stays the same. There's a shortfall. And you got to remember too, there's a negative fund balance of $3-something million, and that 3.7, 3.8, now it's going to be 7.2, 7.3, which is significant.
Do you have a question?
I lost where you are in this package because we can't see this thing.
Oh, page 12.
12.
Okay, I don't know.
12
Yeah,
with the
these
reference
slides
to
get moved
7.
around.
So 7 has the historical of where they're doing.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at the facts right now.
Now we're on
13.
And I apologize, these facts were up somewhere, so I guess this thing's jumping all over the place. Okay, facts. Last time the city expenditure were under $10 million was 2011. They were at $9.12 million. For 2019, the revenues and expenditures, and we're just going to deal with the expenditures right now at 9.25. City's average expenditures for the past 8 years was $12 million. The past 4 years is $13 million. And of course, once again, I tell you the budget is 9.25. Projected shortfall, based on a 4-year average, city budget for 2019 has a funding shortfall of $3.79 million. That's taking what they budget at 9.25, subtracting out the 4-year average of 13.04, that's 3.79. Based on 2018 actuals, times 115%, so that's really that 15% increase factor. City's budget for 2019 has a funding shortfall of $5.38 million. doing the same math before. I'm taking that 12.7 you saw on an earlier slide. I'm increasing it, I'm hitting it by 115%. That's $14.63 million, which tells me I'm budgeting $9.25 million. And I believe my expenditures are going to be much higher than that. They haven't been that low since 2001, which is going on 9 years ago. Now, fund balance projection for 2019. Here's BOE fund balance, 701. City fund balance, 702. You look at our fund balance, it's 10.93. Budget revenues, 19.69. Projected expenditures, based on the budget we put together, 21,002,000. Projected fund balance, 9.6. City fund balance, negative 3.78. Budget revenues, 9.25. This is projected expenditure. This isn't a budget expenditure. This is a projected expenditure that I put together. So if it's off, but I think you can easily say it's going to be 12.7 or whatever. So if it's off, and it could be even higher, tell you the truth. You never know. 14.63 negative fund balance projected of $9,160,000. Now, if you consolidate both these funds together, your fund balance between both, so it's sort of like $440,000. It's pretty much zero. Yes.
So earlier the statement was that it was only on paper, and if we put the two together, that we wouldn't assume their debt. That was the statement before,
well,
right?
Yeah.
So if that is true, then how do you keep track of who? How do you guarantee that?
Well,
how do we know
the
that?
whole thing about combining them really doesn't make sense, and I'm going to tell you why. I mean, I heard the excuse that we have to combine them for rating agency purposes. You can consolidate your funds. I've consolidated my funds. So at the end of the day, you should still keep Fund 701, keep Fund 702. We should monitor our own funds. But for auditing purpose, for the annual CAFR report, I don't really care if you combine it. Some people might be offended if they combine it. I don't really care. I've combined the funds as a finance director, and usually you combine it because your audit report is kind of huge. So if your auditors don't have a problem, I don't have a problem, and that's what I basically said next door. I don't have a problem. Just combine it. You should ask the question before you moved on it, and you should communicate it before you moved on it. Yes.
She asked my question.
Right. So if it's for reporting purposes only, then it shouldn't. If it's only for reporting purposes, then that report goes to one place. Then we should still have an authentic one that shows us what they actually are.
The accounting system gives you two separate funds. Funds should always be separated. I will argue with people, even on a capital project fund. Some communities merge capital projects as one fund, which is kind of absurd to tell you the truth. That's why you have an accounting system. Each capital project should be its own fund. I'm going to tell you the reason why is because then you can track that capital project, right. You can track those revenues, you can track those expenditures, and then you can figure out what do I need to fund it by. Right. So when you consolidate it, it's a huge mess. And if you know what you're doing, you consolidate them, and at the end of the day, when you do your CAFR, you may have a line item for each capital project saying, here's what the appropriation was, here's what the expenditure was, but the balance sheet is a consolidation balance sheet. But you should be looking at each balance sheet individually when you're managing those capital projects. Right. And that's why I always found out myself, when I went to a new accounting system, I actually took the 20, the 30 capital project, whatever was out there, and I separated it because it was so much easier to manage. And there's no really extra work on it because a lot of times things are pulled cash anyway. It's just that it's easiest to run a report for somebody. They say, give me the Smalley project. I can give you a freaking balance sheet on Smalley versus looking at a balance sheet and saying, well, here's maybe what Smalley's cash looks like. I can just run a report on one project to give you that. I mean, that's the reason you do it. It's not because it's simplicity. So sometimes it takes longer to set that up, but in the long run, it's the way you go. That's why you have a finance system, accounting system. Right. They allow you to do those things. So when somebody asks me a question, I can give you an answer. Years ago, a lot of Board of Educations would actually end state and federal grant funds, which is a huge mess. They would stick them in one fund. And when I was in Simsbury, the business manager is a great guy, but I would have to help him with the audits going through his fund. And I said to him one day, we went to a new system, why don't you just create 30 funds? Because then you can roll them up as one. So when I became a business manager, in Clinton first, that's how we did it. I took out one fund, I made a number of funds, and when I came to here, Board of Education, we put a new system in. We were actually in like one fund. No, I created a fund for each
Yeah, we
state
know.
and federal grant. Why? Because I can manage it and see a lot easier.
And you can see who's spending what where.
Yeah, and that's why that's why you do it. It's not because it's ownership. It's I always tell everybody I like to do things simple and stupid, and that's what numbers are, simple and stupid. They shouldn't be complex. If they're complex, it's going to be over my head. Is there a question?
No, I think I got the gist of that.
Hopefully. Now here's our funding for 2017-18. Just it's just informational purposes. It really doesn't mean anything. This is our actual funding. We actually funded $18.33 million. Our local 10.37. If we use full funding, no use of reserves last year, it would have been 11.30. So even though we actually ended up last year with a surplus, we didn't fund it fully. We actually used reserves, and we still ended up with a surplus. I don't have an answer for that, but it worked out well. So that's, if anybody's looking at 2017-18, they say, oh, how'd you come up with that?
Right.
These are numbers that came from our budget.
Yes.
Can I make that statement?
Make sure it's accurate first. She wants to know if the reserves that we use were for contractual obligations.
Okay, yes.
Go ahead, did you want to ask?
I just have the question. We use the fund balance from last year to fulfill contractual obligations because we were flat funded
Yes.
from the city.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, you're correct, 100%.
Okay.
Now, I'm just disclosing this because, when I look at Fund 701, which I really wasn't sure was part of a second question, I'm just disclosing this because I don't know where these numbers came from. I do know where they came from. They don't make any sense. But at the end of the day, I'm telling you, I don't really care if Fund 701 has $1 in it or $20 million in it for a budget. It really means nothing to me. But for whatever reason, they picked up $13,975,000. And that's actually from our budget book, on our summary page. So if you actually went to our budget book, I think it's like page 40 or something like that. And that's when, you remember our budget book has all these columns going across, and I do have it here, so if anybody asks me later on. And then it's all departments, and it shows 3 columns. It shows total, it shows grant portion, and it shows general fund local portion. That $13,975 really came from the total column. So I understand that completely. The employee contributions, whatever reason, is really from the employee contribution. Yeah, what is the employee? Yeah, the employee contributions is actually, look at the 2 line items next to it, $3,089,000 and $1,122,000. That's the way to $4,212,000. It actually picked up our total contribution, including employee contributions, as $13 million. What I'm trying to tell you, if you actually look at our budget book, you'll see that the local contribution was $10,028,000. The grant contribution on that page was $3,946,000. The employee contribution in our budget book is $3,089,000, and the retiree contribution is the 2017 actual. So if this was picked up correctly, and it really has no bearing, our budget should have been $18,187,000. We actually did use, we projected to use $2 million, $2.2 million in reserves. And if we didn't use reserves, our revenue budget would have been $20,391,000, and that was just based on a 10% actual. And at that point in time, I just inflated the rates by 10%. I had no idea. When we did our budget in June, we found out for the most part our actuals were 15%. We had a rate increase. We used lesser reserves, and so the numbers changed, but our census data changed too. So what I'm saying is we had approximately the same amount of employees. I think we dropped a few employees at that point in time, and then sometimes sometimes we go from a couple to a single to whatever. So sometimes it's by luck that our expenses go down just based on how people move. And that was a snapshot in time. So when we did the January budget, we probably went back to somewhere around December 1st, and we used the census data at that point in time to arrive at that number. Conclusion. It appears that the action that was taken to close BOE self-insurance fund to city self-insurance fund was done really for 2 reasons. To eliminate the self-insurance negative fund balance of the city of $3.78 million, to fund the city's shortfall, which it can be projected to be $5.38 million. But it is projected to be a negative anyway. I think you can look at the numbers and reasonably say, unless they lost a third of the employees.
No, they're kind
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be something that, was whatever. In essence, BOE employees, retirees, and blah, 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 are paying the claims for the city employees. The BOE is a separate entity from the city. You know, some people say, no, the BOE is the department of the city because that's what the city charter says. And the city charter does say that. But state statute tells us we're a separate entity. So as a Board of Education, we do have like 2 separate reporting. And we do have, you know, some reporting to the city. But you have to remember too, when we look at the city, and if you look at that budget, it's 340 pages long. You see one line item going across. So for the city, we're a one line item budget. Now as a Board of Education, you guys can demand, I want some accountability, and which this Board of Education does. But you have the oversight of the budget, not the city of New Britain, not the Common Council, not the Board of Finance and Tax, and not the mayor. It's just, that's just life. You're a separate entity, and people got to remember that. So even though the city charter may say you're a department, it doesn't really matter because state statute says something separately. There is a reporting to the city. There's no doubt about it, but we report to the state, and the state basically gives us the authority to be a separate entity. Recommend action to correct. And you know, the whole point about this is really simple to correct. And that's why for me it's frustrating because as a finance director, I've amended budgets or I've made suggestions to amend budgets. And this happens, not all the time, but it happens. You know? So you'll see an attachment there, attachment B, to amend fiscal year 2019 budget as shown in Exhibit B. And all Exhibit B is doing is taking what you see in Fund 701 and 702, and it's showing you in the left column where the Board of Finance and Tax Review have numbers going down, totaling $13,975,000 and $14.1 million on the city side.
There you go.
And then if you look at the column in the middle, it gives you zeros on Board of Education for Fund 701, and it moves all those numbers to the city Fund 702. All I'm saying, the quick and dirty and easiest amendment is just for the Common Council, just to amend the budget. You have the motion right here. That's all we're seeking. We're not seeking anything else. And for financial statement purposes, I want to say that municipalities can't consolidate funds. So you know, when people say, well, no, we can't, no, you can't. I mean, it's been done before. Now, corrective action, if cities amend their general fund budget, I'm not going to say. People have asked me, they say, well, maybe the city has a shortfall in the budget. Maybe they do, but that's not really our concern. But as a former finance director, I'm going to say, well, if you really want to amend your budget because there's something you need to correct, there's different ways to amend your budget. Many times when people amend budgets, and if you remember 3 years ago, our budget got amended because at that point in time, the current mayor went to the state to get our appropriation reduced by $4.4 million. When she was on the Board of Education, the prior mayor increased our appropriation by 4.4. The following year, the mayor and people went to the state to have that reduced. The state Board of Education knew about it. They called me on the phone right away. You know, I said, what do we do? They go, well, you really can't do anything, but you're going to get your money anyway. And that was the end of the story. But whatever they give you for a budget, you know, it might take 6 months, it might take a year, you're going to be restored to $123.2 million. But they set the thing, you got to do what they do, but believe me, we're going to be supporting this to make it change. So the budget was adopted at $118.8 million somewhere in early July, and everybody knew they had to make a change. The city had to amend, or they did amend the Board of Education budget by increasing our appropriation to what it was, because we're an alliance district, we're a very poor district. You know, we're 167th out of 169 communities in the state. And I was joking with Superintendent Sarah today, and she's probably not thinking it's too funny, but we're pretty darn close to being 168. So, you know, we may be there, maybe 167, but we're going farther and farther down. You know, when I got here, we were 163, 164, whatever. Now, we're still far enough from 169. But if we had that $4.4 million from 4 or 5 years ago, we would be 169th in the state today. You know. So this is just the way they amend it. If you really want to amend the budget, you can increase your medical self-insurance line by what it was initially, by 4.8, or whatever you decide it should be. So you're amending your budget, you're making sure your revenues equal your expenditures. You might have a revenue line item that you know about, but many times when people say, well, it's a little late in the game, they designate fund balance. They take the fund balance and they designate it over there. Now, as a city or a town, when we used to do this, you know, it was up to us to say, hey, look, guys, we really don't want to use fund balance. We're going to do this for accounting purposes. we need to basically trim back our costs this year to maybe use fund balance, but not that amount. But that's on that side. And you see the exhibit. So, any questions?
Any questions?
Now, if anybody in the audience has any questions for me, and not me tonight, but any other time, it doesn't matter. He's a council member. I'm willing to meet with anybody. This is nothing complex. You know, like I said, today is October 15th. This happened before June 18th. We found out on June 18th. It probably happened on June 9th that it officially got adopted by the Common Council. Had no idea. So it's really 4 months. And I know over the time period this summer, board members have reached out to know Prevail. I believe many of the Common Council members know. And, you know, we're at this situation right now. That's what this is doing tonight. Somebody asked me today, are you looking forward to tonight? No, I'm not, because this should never happen. Right. I shouldn't even be speaking about this tonight. This should have been resolved before. You know, this should have been some type of communication. There was no communication. If there was communication, I don't know who it was communicated to. But, you know, we are, you know, when you look at as a Board of Education, we all need to work together. We all live in New Britain. I live in New Britain. I wasn't born in New Britain, but I came here when I was 1 year old. I grew up in New Britain. And you realize, too, that it's a community. I mean, we're doing this for kids. We're doing this for citizens, too. Everything should be up front. We should have discussions. This should never happen. I mean, and that's why, you know, for myself personally, I was a finance director. I worked on a municipality. And, you know, and maybe I wasn't a good finance director because I would communicate things that were going to affect the other side, knowingly that I owe it to the other person to let them know, hey, something's coming down the pike. So there has to be communication. And I think I'm suggestion or recommending, and hopefully, is just amend the budget. It's not a big deal. You know, errors are made in life. Let's just correct it and move on.
Thank you, Mr. Kane.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You can clap. Thank you, Mr. Kane, and thank you, Superintendent Sarah, for shedding some light on this predicament we find ourselves in. We did make several attempts to talk and ask questions so that we could have a better understanding before it got to this point. And we weren't able to come to the table and have a discussion. I'm hoping that it can stop here and that there is some type of amendment made so that we don't have to continue being at this point at odds about it. We've been slow walking it in order to try to make it work without involving anyone else. We just were not successful in doing so. I offer to anyone who is on the Common Council that if they would like to sit down and have a conversation, we're here to have the conversation. Superintendent Sarah and I, Mr. Kane, the rest of the board leadership, we would like to have that conversation, and we did offer. So we're hoping that the offer still stands. If we could sit down and if there's any other questions, you want to dig deeper into it, I'm hoping that the finance department on your side would be willing to sit down and have this conversation so that we could really come to an understanding of what we can do to rectify this situation. That would be great. So that offer does still stand. We have, you have a question?
No.
Okay. The next part of our meeting, actually, I am going to entertain a motion for a 3-minute recess.
Motion for a 3-minute recess.
It was a long. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Yep. Okay, we are now on item B of the reports. All right. We are now on board reports. Does anyone have any board reports or things that they would like to let us know about or updates?
No.
No? Okay, fabulous. You can.
I didn't want to, but the curriculum committee had a special meeting last week on Middle of the week.
Middle of the week.
Somewhere in there.
The 10th.
Thank you, Nancy.
The 10th, thank you, Nancy. And there was only one item on the agenda, which was discussion of NWEA testing at the district level. Members of the board and cabinet that were there had a discussion mainly with Mr. Ryan Cornelius, teacher who had concerns about eliminating the requirement of the math testing and lessening the number of administrations for the reading portion of the NWEA. Some clarifications were made. First of all, that the licenses are still there. So what was taken away was the requirement, and that is due to the fact that the district is creating other assessments around STEAM, which is a whole new way to, a whole new piece to the curriculum. That soon we'll have a curriculum audit that will also look at the rest of our curriculum. And really, we need to make sure that our assessments are aligned with our curriculum. If our curriculum is going to change significantly, then there's no need to continue giving the assessments that are possibly aligned to something else. But also that if there is a school having great success and getting really good data that they are using properly from those tests, the licenses are still there and they are free to administer them. So that was sort of the main clarification, as well as giving Mr. Cornelius the possibility to do PD for other schools or teachers who maybe just want to learn how to use the data better, who may not have found it as useful. There have been changes over the last couple of years with those assessments and the reports that can be derived from them. So that sort of summarizes what we talked about.
Do you think that alleviated a lot of the concerns you've had?
I think so. I think there was, it wasn't necessarily communicated, it sounds like, or it didn't get to him at all the school levels, that it is a possibility and it's sort of left up to admin discretion what their different schools choose to do with it. There's a minimum set by the district and they can do what they feel is useful.
It was a very encouraging meeting, I found. Very empowering and then very exciting to see his passion and to see that, you know, as a whole, the district sees the whole picture for, you know, the whole district, but that it was fine-tuned and that he had the options to be able to, you know, continue with the professional development and just excitement on the test, you know,
Right.
just the excitement that he wants to share about that test and how it's a useful tool was very encouraging to hear.
And I wanted to report, and I had spoken to a couple of people who attended the NAACP meeting that you spoke at the other day, Superintendent Sarah, and they were pleased that you came out, one, to the meeting, and that, two, that you were able to explain a little bit more in depth about NBU, about the schedule changes, and what the what it looks like as far as electives and STEAM, and that they were encouraged that it shed a new light on maybe some of the understandings that they had had previously, and they're looking forward to hearing from you again.
Yes, I know, I was 15 minutes late. I ran out of my parent community forum to get to, and then of course I couldn't figure out how to open that door. One person walked up and pushed the button, and I'm like, really, I just sat there. Look at how to open the door. But it was good. I talked quickly, as I usually do, and but I'd like to go back. Continue with that.
And then just a side, well, not a side note, but I have two students who are experiencing STEM, and it's very interesting that my 4-year-old is now talking to me about gravity. I think it's cool. And my 5-year-old is talking to me about evaporation, and it's like totally excited about STEAM, and you know, it's amazing to hear the things that they're talking about, and when they can count the activities that they're doing, and they're really excited about it, so it's really good.
And it's not going to be without its flaws, I will keep saying that, right?
Of course.
I met with the STEAM teachers for a couple of hours today, took their feedback. We'll bring some issues to cross union, some we're figuring out, you know, better scheduling and that sort of thing. And so it's going to be tweaking as we go along to make it better, but that's real.
I've bumped into several parents at my church that attend here in Newbury and had positive reports of their children being in middle school. I bumped into some students that are in the high school that attend my church, and I asked them questions, and they were excited about what was the changes, you know.
That's nice to
and
hear.
They brought their report cards to me, and
Oh,
so.
that's
it was very
nice.
nice, yes. I just want, our church uses report cards as their ties, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We know that students and children can't use, don't have money to offer for offering or tithes, but they can give to the Lord through their grades, and so they brought their grades to show us, and it's their way. It's something we're doing to promote
Yes.
parent involvement, because parent involvement want to come and then they want to say, oh, look at my child's grades. So
Right. Oh, that's
it's
nice.
just
That
really
is
good.
very
It's a good
nice.
incentive.
Any other reports? Excellent. Okay, here on the motion.
Oh, you want a motion from
committee?
here?
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the revised policy 6146 for the graduation requirements for the class of 2016-17? Thank you. A, thank you. You give us a motion in a second, thank you. All those in favor, discussion, any? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Can I have a motion to approve policy 6146.20?
Motion, second.
Graduation requirements for the class of 2020 and 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion to approve new policy that does not have a number, Connecticut State Department, which is the seal of biliteracy guidelines.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm trying to find it in the packet.
I just don't remember if we put a number to it. A number.
There is no number assigned.
That was just an
There is no
Ireland or
number assigned to it.
something. Okay.
Can it's gonna be 6146 something, right? Point 1 or something, because these are, all the graduation requirements are in that.
No, it's by literacy.
Right, but it's by literacy, but it's
For
it's a seal for
graduation.
graduation.
Gotcha.
So, come up with a fancy number, .30 if there isn't one, and
Can we vote on it?
can that work?
without-
I think we can vote on it without a
There is
number.
a 6146.30. There is no 6146.40.
.40 sounds great. Friendly amendment, 6146.40. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying, I make a motion to assign number 6146.40.
I second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the new policy with the new number 6146.40, which is the Connecticut State Department Connecticut Seal of Biliteracy Guidelines, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Excellent. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the new policy 1110.4 with automated calls and texts?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Consent agenda, please peruse and see,
E and
Yes.
F, please.
Yes.
I meant to say that.
Board reports. It's
I was
okay.
kind of over all the numbers.
No, I hear you. That's my head. Okay. Motion for partnerships. Can you make the motion? Motion to accept the donation. And
Motion to accept the donation in the amount of $6,000 from the Anna Grace Project for identified Love Win schools.
Second.
Thank you, Anna Grace Project. I didn't get it to my iPad is under the weather.
It's dead.
It's dead.
Yes, we like to talk about the contributions. We are always grateful for any amount of money that is given to the school district, and it's going to be used. Where is it?
It's in a Love Win school, and I
It's in a
know
Love
it's.
Win
Which
school.
one? Do we know which
I
one?
don't
I don't have it.
know.
All of them, I think.
Well,
Okay.
all of the Love Win schools.
Right, it
Right.
can be used between all of those.
Right. But a donation of $6,000 is definitely appreciated, and we thank you very much for your kindness and your continued partnership.
Yes.
And motion
Make
for...
a motion to approve a grant in the amount of $15,000 from the Department of Economic and Community Development, State of Connecticut, for the Summer Learning Experience Programs. Thank you.
Second. Discussion. Thank you. Who is this? It is from them. Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much for the $15,000. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Lynn. All right. Okay. Did you want to pull something off?
I did, because I just had a question. What is this?
What
What is it?
Are these new positions?
Extracurricular, okay. Hold
Education
on.
techs?
All right,
So, I guess personnel transactions, C.
Okay. All right. Motion to approve the personnel transactions, please.
Oh, motion to approve personnel transactions.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
I just had a question on the education tech assistants. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
So it's a stipended position. We started those last year when we eliminated the computer para positions.
Oh, I thought they, oh, okay.
No, so these are
Yep.
existing staff members who have a stipend.
Yep. I remember from Jeff.
Yes.
For your presentation at the high school?
Yep, I remember.
Yep.
It all came back to me.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Excellent. Okay. You have another one?
Nope.
Okay. I was like, wait. Okay, new business. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve purchase order for CCSU Teacher Leader Fellowship Program.
Motion.
Second. Okay.
Oh, second.
Discussion? This is funding sources SIG grant
Right, I was gonna say, it's a sick grant.
1003.
Grant.
But
You're fine.
I'm okay.
Any other? Go ahead. You can
No,
give.
Ms. Putnam, if you want to just come and speak to the teacher fellowship program briefly.
Sure. What is it again? I'm sorry.
The CCSU Teacher Leader Fellowship Program.
Oh, sure, yeah. Sal's still here too. We have this has been a three-year program, sorry. A three-year program that we've had with CCSU. We've got 18 teachers who, 18 teachers and one administrator who joins this fellowship meeting every month, and they talk about district topics anywhere between implementation of initiatives and how well they're going to things that are very, very specific to districts. Dr. Betty Steinberg runs the Teacher Fellowship Program, and it's a great way for our teachers not only to build capacity, but also to learn about other districts and network at the same time.
And this is the group that's going to Finland? Optional to go to Finland?
It's, yes, right,
That was-
exactly. That
That
funding
looks like
is not
fun.
going to
Can
be
I go?
paying for that trip.
No, I know, but I'm like, if you're looking for people to attend.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it was
Canada
Finland
and
last
Finland.
year.
Yes.
Yeah, it says Ottawa on here too.
Yeah.
Right, and then they'll visit the school district, and they'll get meetings with the officials in those school districts to learn about the educational systems in both of those countries.
Excellent.
Pretty cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Okay.
Motion to approve purchase order for Anna Grace Project in CSNDB schools.
Need a second?
Second.
Thank you. I don't know what page it is. It's right after
It's
the
right
other
after
one.
that.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's from the IDEA grant.
Yeah, idea grant, Title IV grant.
Right. In schools, Chamberlain, D. Loretto, Gaffney, Holmes, Jefferson, Lincoln, North End, Smalley, Smith, Vance, NBTC, and NBHS. And it is for clinical services provided by the Klingberg Center, classroom support services, professional development as needed, college and career exposure through Central Connecticut State University. And we have had this program ongoing since 2014.
Awesome.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. The next is the
Boys Town.
Please. Motion,
I
please.
was gonna say, motion to approve the contract with Boys Town for continuation of services.
Second.
This is also grant funded.
It is. It is 1003 and 1003A.
Yeah, 1003 and 1003A.
And the total is $179,339 to be used.
hold on.
It's the rollout for the specialized classrooms. Steps Pulaski, Steps at Slade, Sunrise at Chamberlain, Sunrise at Holmes, the New Britain Transition Center, Brookside School, and one behavior room at New Britain High School.
And this is just an expansion of what they're already doing?
Yes, this is really for our specialized classroom management.
So when did it start? It said it was rescheduled.
I was just gonna say, so is this
Ongoing.
an extension or additional? Because it says the service needed to be rescheduled due to readiness assessment conducted early in August.
So Sandra's going to take that one.
Yeah, I don't, is it an extension or a?
I don't know how close to stand. So there's
I know.
3 components in the Boys Town. The first one is the specialized classroom. It's behavior management program. It started last year, but in the beginning of the year where the contract was here, they delayed their time to focus on the safety in the classroom. So this program is a continuation of the last year. It's a continuation of the work that should be done in the classrooms. The second piece in the Boys Town is for the well-managed. This is actually the year 4. The contract is to support the train-the-trainer model, and this it's support needed to build a capacity, and the contract is specifically for helping the trainers in their support in the work of building capacity. So we're working our way out of this contract as we're building capacity within each school. And then the third part is for Safe and Healthy. It's a year 1 pilot, and we're going to try and, with all the great work that was done in the other schools, we're piloting it in the middle schools now to try and have some of the same behavior management adjustments and progress there as well.
So 10 elementary schools utilizing the well-managed, the specialized classroom management at these specialized schools. And then the third piece is the, what is that one? Oh, the train-the-trainer model at the middle schools.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm still thrown by that last.
Which one?
Services need to be rescheduled due to a readiness assessment conducted in early
So
August. So they weren't ready to implement.
They weren't ready to implement because they had to control some things first in order to implement it effectively.
Got it.
So it wasn't them, it was us, right?
Correct.
What they saw
They
in
focused
us,
on
they
the
wanted
safety.
to better gauge what we were doing and kind of rein that in first and then implement what they
Sure.
did.
Yes, they address the safeties.
Stabilize the situation before adding something else.
Correct, exactly right.
All right.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Sandra.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I know, please go to sleep. If I could, I would. All right. A motion to approve the
Motion to
national.
approve the National School Lunch Program Agreement.
Okay. All, discussion?
This is standard, annual.
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
Is there like a program agreement?
Right, so
Yes.
it's the one that allows us to have free and reduced lunch. It's the numbers that they crunch for us. I think it's biannually that Kevin and Ms. Alfano go through this and
Yep.
propose the number to the state. And as long as we don't drop below that number for our demographics, we continue to get free and reduced lunch.
Okay. Is there a deadline to submit or to have this signed?
Ms. Alfano, Mr. Kane.
Mr. Kane is here.
Where'd you go?
Oh, there
He's
he
back there.
comes.
Mr. Kane, the question on the table is there a deadline to sign the National School Lunch Program Agreement?
Oh, is there a deadline? Is there a question you don't want to sign?
Yeah, why?
I don't know.
I'm why you asking, I'm curious.
I would like to have Nick actually look and make sure our policies are in alignment with whatever we're agreeing to.
Oh, we just did a food
This is an
one.
annual thing, so that's why, I don't know if there's a deadline.
Right.
Actually oversees everything.
We just did a food one.
We did, well, that's why, because we just did the food policy. I would want to make sure that the food policy matches what we're agreeing to in the,
So it agrees that we will not, and I'm paraphrasing, we agreed in our policy, or we said that we would not sell food during the day prior to lunch being, any foods being served, that we would
right, and are there any
fundraising.
but are there any changes in this that contradict what our
snacks right
policy
here.
is?
Well, I'm just saying that the national, there's a it's a really strict policy. So,
Right.
Yeah, those are really strict, and if we don't abide by it, all our kids get free lunches.
Right. They'll take it back.
There's a possibility that the money can go away.
So that's my only concern, is looking at what our food policy is and comparing it to what we're agreeing
Has
to.
this changed from prior years?
No.
No, it's the same.
So then our
We
food
were-
Are we
policy-
100% sure
Yes.
this has not
Oh,
changed?
yeah, because we went through it with a fine tooth comb the last time.
That's the reason why it's really standard. And
All right.
It's very restrictive. I think, superintendent will find out that it's very restrictive about,
Yes.
the policy. How we-
Right.
Right, but as long as it has not changed, then
We used this when we
Formulated
wrote the
policy.
last
Right,
one.
that this,
So if it
okay, all
hasn't
right, I was
changed,
just
then
gonna
we
say,
should
if
be
we
good.
use this to
Yeah.
write our, to amend our
align, yeah.
policies,
Yes.
then I'm okay.
Yeah, because we had a big discussion about even
Right.
big sales and fundraisers and
Right.
whether or not we could do it and whether we'd be at risk of losing our monies when we
Right.
rewrote the policy.
Exactly.
And this is why.
All right, because I'm just flipping through to see if I see any
Well, it's
dates.
very stringent. The wellness program
Ultimately, it
too.
boils down to, we don't want to take away free lunch for 9,700 kids. So we're going to sign this thing if we have to change our policy to make sure that.
Right. But I don't want to miss something in our policy and then go, oh, look, you just lost funding for 9,700 kids.
But we know we'd lose it if we don't sign the agreement.
Right, right,
do it.
right.
So,
Well, I'm good.
okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
I should say no, just in case.
Approve the agreement for child nutrition programs. I need a motion.
Motion to approve child nutrition programs.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? This is that same.
Annual.
It's an annual, correct? And we have our policy, we amended our policy based on
Yes.
this. I'm good.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Beautiful. Okay, so F, I don't have it with me.
I don't. Mr. Kane can fill us in,
Yeah,
update us on the
short
displaced
version.
students due to Hurricane Maria.
Okay, I need a motion first.
The condensed.
Motion to receive an update on displaced students due to Hurricane Maria.
Second.
All right.
Okay, very condensed.
Yes.
As you recall, last year, we had the students from the islands. Majority was Puerto Rico due to the situation. We brought in somewhere, I had numbers before,
300.
but it was somewhere about 400 students
Right.
throughout the year that came here.
I have the email, I should just.
The point is, we received no monies as of last year, so all the changes that were, to take care of those kids, we've done it within our own operating budget.
Right.
No additional
Right.
appropriation.
I thought we were,
Your $125.7 million.
We were promised some,
So-
haven't received it yet.
We did make changes when we actually moved, reading teachers in the classroom, yada, yada, but there was no additional monies that came to the board.
We should be getting money from the
Yes,
state.
Yes.
The
that-
same
there's
we're getting
monies
money?
coming.
We are, but we haven't gotten it yet.
That
We haven't
whole
received it.
calculation of 1,000,003, yada, yada, that is actually just a
That's this one.
calculation from the federal government
Yep.
that says, if you had a student here all year, and let's say he or she's special ed, it's $2,500 a quarter or $10,000 per year.
Mm-hmm.
If a student is regular ed, I believe it was 21, 25, or 8,500. And if the kid was ELL, it was either 2,250 or 9,000. So it's really sort of reimbursement check for just over $1.3 million. So
Right.
people are asking, how many teachers do we hire last year? How many girls do we hire? No, we actually move people around the classrooms and fill in the boards, but no, we had no funding. We did it within your own budget.
And
So
we
we
still
don't have an
don't have funding now. We have not
Right.
received
Well, the
funding.
funding's come shortly. I'm not sure it has been received yet, but it's.
from the federal government?
From the State Department of Education.
What, is that going to be like pilot?
Oh,
funding?
federal,
Private?
right.
Never
My
said
understanding, the next thing is, if the funding has been received yet, it will be received shortly.
Right.
And
So
will
we
it
did
come
what we
to
were
us,
supposed to do.
Kevin, or will it go to the city?
Initially, they talked about writing us a check, but they could be wiring it to the city, I don't really know. Yeah, initially, the initial phone call.
Can you go pick it up?
Yeah, really.
Cash,
Like the lotto show.
Right.
Yeah.
Prayerfully, we'll get it directly to us.
I think it's going to go, I think Kevin and I were wondering, because it was supposed to be reimbursing from last year's expenses, And because we start the school year, you know, with the same, it really is to pay for what was last year.
Right.
Well, to pay for what was last year may not come our way. It might go to the city and not us.
I mean, when we talked about it, we're not sure. I mean, I think myself personally, I would like to get the 1.3 and put it on our side. But when I was talking to the superintendent about the self-insurance fund, I said, you know, we really have a big cap of skin here. 1.3, I'd love to keep it, but we gotta get the self-insurance fund back.
Right.
That's a real.
It's more than 1.3.
Yeah, so if you
So
want
we'd
to
like that better.
negotiate.
But when you add that to the already, what's taken, that's a big number.
Right.
So if you really want to put it, you know, high and low, yes.
We'll be nice, we'll let you keep this money.
I mean, it's not like the city gave us extra money for them, so they have no reason to keep it.
Right, I was just gonna say, why would they
Zero
keep it when they
reason to
didn't
keep
give us
it.
any money? They didn't give us extra money to
Even
say.
if we're avoiding an issue, there's no issue
Yeah.
to avoid.
Right,
Because
because they didn't give us any
that
money
was
to support
not-
them, so why
right.
should they get to keep the money that we
I'm too
use to
cheap for
support
The
them?
existing 10,000.
We're poor as it is.
Right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kane, for that update. There's no need to vote on it.
Nope.
It's just an update.
And then we already did the pending. And
Yeah, we have to
then,
go back into, well, no, we
no,
don't.
we have a motion to add,
Yes, please.
make a motion to add something to the agenda.
Okay. Tell us what it is.
Oh, I have to tell you what it, oh, so you just motioned and
Yeah,
you know what it
yeah, what it
was.
is.
It's for me to read the dictionary.
From A to B. That's really gonna be seated in.
Make a motion to add to the agenda approval of Smith Elementary School roof project.
Now you can say.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
Do we have the roof project?
There's no documentation.
Oh, there's Ray. I'm like, no, he was here.
Yes. Do the small.
Hold on,
We can't hear you.
Come up and
everybody's talking at the same
Get this
time.
Hold
on
on.
camera, please. Well, he's
Come
coming up.
on down.
Mr. Moore and I went to the state together, and I learned how to do all those fun things and that accounting
Yay.
and that system.
Does the system work? This is does the system now work? The new system?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Okay,
went for training.
We met last week, and we had a whole room full of support for just New Britain.
We felt like a special case.
We were a special.
We were able to enter three projects worth of information, and we already received notification that our funding reimbursement has been approved. So the city should see some money coming in shortly. While we were there, we discovered that while we were closing out the Gaffney School roof project, one of the expenses for Gaffney was posted to Smith Roof's project accidentally.
On the
So
city
they
side.
asked us to close out the Smith roof project so that we can make the transfer, and we'll just add that to the other three.
Lovely.
Lovely, okay.
So that was a
Is this just
mistake
an
made on
accounting
city
action?
side. They allocated the funds to Smith School Roof Project. That was inaccurate. It was supposed to be Gaffney.
That's correct.
So we're
now we're
just
remedying.
voting on an accounting
I'm just
procedure.
pointing it out.
To close out the
That's-
roof project so we can make out the adjustment.
Perfect. Right.
All right, so now a motion to approve Smith Elementary roof project as complete and authorizes facilities department to close out the project.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Ray.
Okay, is there anything else
That's it,
besides
right?
this? Okay.
Other than executive.
Motion to go into executive
We
session.
have to review it again.
Oh, you reviewed it
We
outside
reviewed it
or?
last time. I mean, this is just it.
Oh, this is what
Saying
we're
that
gonna
we
vote
are
on. We're gonna just
gonna vote
Oh,
on
you
it.
have to do like a summary?
Discuss.
Yeah, I just want.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the last part. I'm gonna just do the
This is the
last.
second, third time. we
Can I
put
just
this,
make
so now
comment?
we're voting on it.
Oh,
And now
jeez.
the city.
Yeah.
Can I make that comment? No, I won't. Okay.
We are, if you're trying to figure out what we're doing up here, so the next item on the list, I need,
Motion to review superintendent's year-end evaluation.
oh,
Second.
perfect. Okay, let's get into the discussion part. This is with all the numbers and everything stricken out. So we're gonna read the highlights. Okay, so the Board of Education, in accordance with the board policy and the contract between the board and the superintendent, Nancy Sarah, is submitting the following evaluation of performance for the 2017-2018 school year. I am not reading this whole thing. I would like to go to bed at some point. Okay.
Just do the summary.
I'm gonna read the summary.
Summaries, yeah.
Perfect.
Just going to read the summary. The past year has been focused on transition and change. The superintendent, the Board of Education, and her cabinet have set promising goals for the year ahead. As reflected by the number of goals set and met this year, Ms. Sarah has done a wonderful job guiding the district through the changes. We continue to encourage the superintendent to work diligently with stakeholders and board members to spread the vision of the district. We know that with change comes resistance, and with resistance, adversity, but we are confident that larger focus is on achievement and success. We acknowledge that for every area of growth, there is a strategy in place to meet or exceed them. We also note that these goals, strategies, and benchmarks be included in the 5-year plan. We also recommend that the superintendent continue to reassess, reevaluate, and adjust the 5-year plan as needed. We recommend that the superintendent utilize the evaluation in continuing her professional growth and in the coming school year, and continues her work as a reflective educator. And then under growth and student achievement definition, I just wanted to highlight that 12 of the 16 goals were met. The board appreciates the frequency in which the data has been reported out over the past school year. We would like to see updates regarding attendance, and as we continue to focus on class size. As you know, the board is keen on looking at class size, and we are aware when it's bubbling over, and we continue to have conversations and strategize with the superintendent about how we can make sure that it is managed as well as possible. And we also would like to commend Ms. Sarah for her initiative with her the cross-union meetings that she has undertaken this year. And we look forward to the collaboration between the superintendent and the unions as we are going forward. I think that is it. And then we also appreciate the leadership through the new cost-saving transportation endeavor. And I think that is all that we can say about that right now. Yes, enough said about that. Ms. Sarah, is there anything you'd like to say?
I will be brief, under 1 minute, because we all want to get home and go to bed. Really, it's been a learning, it continues to be a learning process. That's all I can really say. And for me, I think the highlight has been trying to surface the problems that we have in the district around trust. Up, down, across, all ways. I think that continues to be an area that we all have to work toward. And you know, I'm reminded of my pace. I keep trying to go slower. That's been since I've been about 5. And you know, it was a huge learning year for me last year. I will say I have got strong, good people in this district that want to work. They do. And so it's just being sure that we are constantly in communication. And it's not that it's rosy every day. It's not. There are days that there's weeks that we don't talk to each other because we're angry about one thing or another. But that's the reality, I think, of growing as a family together. And, you know, there's 2,000 of us trying to work and pretty passionate about what we do. The one thing I will say, and I'm going to say this publicly, I try to lead with honesty and dignity. I really try. And it's hard. This has been a hard year for me around transportation, that being one of them. And I have to thank the board and Kevin for being very, very much at my side as we go through that. That was difficult. And what we're currently experiencing in our city has been a difficult challenge as well. But for me, it's about, I was hired to keep 10,300 students safe and make sure that they get the best possible education. And if that means that we have to say what is, even though it's not popular, then that's what we have to do. And that's not always easy, right? Right. So anyway, but I just want to thank everyone. It's been a very learning year for me. Let's put it that way. And I look forward to what comes. I'm looking forward to making kids want to be in school.
Yep.
Right. So, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Last on the list.
Is this executive session or is this
We
our voting?
can do that if we have any. We can do that. Did we bring that back last time? This is the one, this is the one without the strikeouts. This is the newest one.
You're asking me?
It is.
It is the newest one, yes.
It is the newest one. I don't believe we have this in front of us. Do you want to go into executive session? We can. What do we think?
What's private?
I think if we're not sure, we should go into executive session.
Probably.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to go into an executive session, inviting who? Nancy,
Yeah.
superintendent, and anybody else?
I don't think so. Anybody else need to be in there?
I don't think so. Kevin, maybe?
I don't know. Kevin, you can talk to him.
Superintendent's contract.
You need somebody to hold your hand.
Do you want, oh, right, and there's also another issue that Mr. Kane wants to update you on regarding,
Oh, so I have to, do I have to add it to the agenda though first?
Is it something in this or something totally
No,
separate?
it's something totally separate.
Oh, just public record now, but yes, thank you.
Right. So I have to make a motion, you have to give me like the title, right?
Sure, it's a pending legal matter.
Okay.
Okay.
Make a motion
So
to add to
let's
the
do that
amend the
one.
agenda
For an
to
update.
add a pending legal matter.
Report by Mr. Kane.
Report by Mr. Kane.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, so those will be the two items
Whatever.
discussed in
Those are the two
executive
items.
session.
Right. Those are, do we vote?
We're gonna vote right now. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are now in executive
I was gonna say
session.
motion to go into an executive session.
You did say that first.
No, because I had to motion to add the agenda before we went to executive session.
Motion to go into.
I'm like Nick Jr.
All those in favor? Aye, okay. No, because. All right. We are back from executive session. I need a motion to postpone.
I'd like to move to postpone action on the superintendent's, a vote on the superintendent's contract until the next regular board meeting.
Second.
2 weeks.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Oh.